Hey, welcome to UK Wildcrafts. So in the UK, fruit can be quite expensive, but in the summer we have it growing all around us. And with a bit of research you can learn to safely identify and harvest your own fruit. So in this video I will show you how to identify a selection of fruits that are common in most parts of the UK and Europe. This is wild strawberry, Fragaria vesca. They're fairly common in woodland clearings. They're a perennial from the rose family. The fruits are quite a lot smaller than the cultivated strawberries you're used to seeing in the shops, but they more than make up for it with their flavour. They're really sweet and they've got a really strong strawberry flavour, much nicer than the ones that you can buy. You usually find them from around June time. They've got quite a long growing period and they're staggered, they don't all grow at the same time, so you can still find them in the same patch from June through to around August. So the leaves have 3 lobes and they're serrated, and the flowers have 5 petals, and those petals are quite widely spaced. So wild strawberries can grow in quite big patches in woodland clearings or along pathways, and they can be fairly hard to spot because they're so small, but once you find one, you just see the bright red against the greens and browns. Yeah, once you find one, you'll usually find quite a few of them hidden amongst all the grass. And there's the leaves are growing just about everywhere, so throughout the summer I'll find quite a few here.
These are our native apples, the crab apple, Malus sylvestris. They're very common in mixed woodlands, parks and alongside paths. You'll see they're a lot smaller than the apples that you're used to seeing in shops, and our true native crab apple doesn't grow much bigger than this. We also do get cultivated apples growing wild in the UK, and they freely hybridize with our native crab apple, so there's a good chance that you'll find one that's a mixture of the two, a native and a cultivated one. Our native ones are pretty much only good used as a cooking apple. They're very sharp and you can't really just eat them off the tree. I like to use crab apples as the base for my jams and jellies because they're very high in pectin, so you don't need to use any pectin powder for your jam to set. And I also use them to make crab apple sauce to go with pork on a Sunday roast. They usually start to ripen from around mid-August, and the way to tell if they're ripe is you cut one in half and look at the seeds. If the seeds are white and not fully formed, then they're unripe. If the seeds are brown, then they're ripe. Now we're still a little bit early, so they're probably not quite ripe yet. So yeah, you see the seeds are white and not fully formed, so these need a little bit longer. The flowers in spring are white or pink with 5 petals, and the leaves are oval and serrated. And the leaf stems are often red or pink at the base. If you're lucky, you might come across an apple tree that has cultivated apples on it. And these usually grow wild when someone has maybe discarded an apple core and the seeds have germinated on it. I found this tree a few years ago and I've come back every year to collect the apples, and it has absolutely hundreds on it. And these apples are quite sweet and they're good enough to eat straight off the tree.
These are plums, Prunus domestica. They're not native to the UK, but they are naturalised here. And you'll find them growing fairly often in hedgerows from July, August onwards. So they grow on quite shrub-like trees with long hanging branches. They're often quite full of fruit, and the fruits are usually dark purple, but you also get yellow ones as well. So the leaves are quite small and oval, and they're toothed, and you quite often get several leaves growing from one clump.
Blackberries are a nice and versatile fruit. They can be used for making jams, cordials, sauces. They go really well with apples in making desserts like pies and crumbles. And of course you can just eat them as a snack straight off the bush if you're going for a walk. They're a good starting point for beginner foragers and kids, because they're nice and easy to identify. As long as they're a dark purple to black aggregated fruit, so they have lots of different segments, then it's one of the brambles. There are lots of types of bramble. They're all basically different hybrids of the blackberry, but they're all edible. So they can be a little bit sharp tasting if they're not perfectly ripe. So if there's still a bit of firmness to them, then you don't really want to pick those ones. You want to go for the ones that are quite a bit bigger and they're really soft. So like this one here, see how easily it just comes off the stem. If you've got any resistance when you're picking them, then they're probably not ripe. But this one here, see how it's got a nice sheen to the colour? That one's about perfect. And also when you squash it, the juice comes out quite easily. Bramble bushes can grow really large and can be well over 2 meters, and they form really dense bushes. The stems are really thorny. There are a few species of thornless blackberry, but most of them are thorny. And they're a very common plant, the bramble. They grow on just about any patch of wasteland, so you'll have no problems finding them, and you get a lot of fruits on each bush as well. You'll find them fruiting, well, they'll start to ripen from July onwards, but August is usually the best month for them.
These are redcurrants. You'll often find these growing in woodland edges and hedgerows, and also alongside rivers. You usually start seeing the fruit from July onwards, and the native ones can usually have quite small fruit, but you get garden escapees and cultivated fruits, that the fruits can be quite a lot bigger. So the fruit has little vertical lines running up it, and also they're translucent, so you can make out the seeds inside them as well. The leaves are serrated, and they usually have 3 or 5 lobes.
Damsons are a subspecies of plum, and you can usually harvest the fruit from around mid-August. They're fairly common, though not as common as other members of the family like Sloe and Malus, and you'll find them in mixed woodlands and hedgerows. So when they're ripe, damsons will go a nice dark purple colour, and they have a bit of a whitish bloom on the skin. And whereas Sloes and Maluses are more spherical, damsons have a more of an oval shape to them. And they grow in really dense clusters. You'll find absolutely loads on each tree. Whereas Sloes are too sour to just eat them raw, damsons you can just eat straight off the tree. And you'll see the flesh looks very similar to plums. It can be quite green or more golden yellow like this one. The leaves of the damson tree are quite small, oval and serrated. And the petioles, or leaf stems, usually have a red tinge to them. These are Sloe berries, Prunus spinosa, and they grow on the blackthorn bush. These are really common in late summer. A lot of farmers use the blackthorn bushes to separate their fields because the bushes are thorny, so they're good at keeping animals out or in fields. And it gets its name because the bark is quite dark, and it has these little black thorns coming off the side shoots, and they're actually quite sharp. So the berries are quite small, and they're pretty much inedible raw. They're really astringent. But they're really good used as sloe gin. That's the main use for them. And you'll see, compared to a damson, they're quite a lot smaller. Sloes and damsons are very closely related, and their leaves look quite similar. Though the sloe blackthorn leaves are smaller, they're still oval and serrated. People get sloes and damsons confused, but sloes are a lot smaller and round, and also they grow on a bush rather than a tree. Damsons grow on a medium-sized tree. And you'll see each of these bushes bear a lot of fruit. Thanks for watching UK Wildcrafts. If you haven't already, you can subscribe here.